We start on.
This is Chicago's very own WGN Midday News.
The strength of this coalition makes it clear to the world that this is not America's fight alone.
In Syria for the first time, the goal to take out terrorist command, training, and supply targets. Good afternoon, I'm Julia Mahoney.
And I'm Anna Brandon. We welcome our viewers who are watching us around the country on WGN America and on the web. Under orders from President Obama, the U.S. launched airstrikes inside Syria, informing the Syrian government in advance of the attack, with no warning on targets or specific strikes. But a major focus for last night's attack, intelligence information on what the White House describes as an imminent threat to the American homeland from the terrorist group known as Corazon. WGN's Julian Cruz has more.
We also took strikes to disrupt plotting against the United States and our allies by seasoned al-Qaeda operatives in Syria who are known as the Khorasan Group. And once again, it must be clear to anyone who would plot against America and try to do Americans harm that we will not tolerate safe havens for terrorists who threaten our people.
President Obama spoke to congressional leaders before last night's attack with military support from Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Bahrain, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. The president says the strength of the coalition makes it clear to the world that this is not America's fight alone. Obama is on his way to New York to speak at the United Nations, and he says he'll meet with Iraq's new prime minister to continue building support for the effort to degrade and destroy ISIS. But for Europeans and Americans, most significant is the news of a Khorasan plot to launch an attack on the West.
We believe the Khorasan group was nearing the execution phase of an attack either in Europe or the homeland. We know that the Khorasan group has attempted to recruit Westerners to serve as operatives or to infiltrate back into their homelands. The Khorasan group is clearly not focused on either the Assad regime or the Syrian people. They are establishing roots in Syria in order to advance attacks against the West and the homeland.
Before the strikes, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Samantha Power, warned the Syrians not to pose a threat to American aircraft. And the Pentagon says there was no coordination with the Syrian government of Bashar al-Assad.
A list has surfaced online accusing 12 students of sexual assault at the University of Chicago. It comes at a time when universities around the country are being investigated for how they respond to reports of rape. WGN's Tonya Francisco talked to students on campus. She has more from Hyde Park.
The University of Chicago is one of 55 colleges and universities across the country under federal review for its handling of sexual assault cases. Now, the person or persons who put out the so-called rapist list says they are trying to protect the community, even if the university won't. It's new student orientation week here at the University of Chicago, many of which are incoming freshmen. So news of a rapist list is thrusting them into a debate that has been simmering for some time.
I'm not sure how I'd probably have to think about it more.
Over the weekend, the names of 12 men accused of sexually harassing and or sexually assaulting peers was posted anonymously online by quote-unquote concerned citizens on the Hyde Park List Tumblr page. That Tumblr page has since been taken down, but there are reportedly flyers circulating on campus too. It not only lists names, but the class which they are scheduled to graduate, and each is assigned a color code. Red is for the most severe offenders, followed by orange. A couple of them also had a note, often at fraternity parties.
I really applaud the people who did this because I think it's serious and I think it took a lot of courage to do.
Olivia Ortiz is a U of C student studying linguistics. She hopes to one day go to law school. She was also sexually assaulted by a fellow student 2 years ago and was frustrated by the university's response. She filed a Title IX complaint, which partly led to the federal government reviewing university responses to sexual assault.
It's finally exciting to get some sort of small sense of justice, even though they won't be arrested because of this. There likely won't be any sort of real punishment for them, but it kind of gives, I think, survivors a way to hold them accountable and get some sort of justice.
But the question remains, is it fair to release the names of people who have not had their day in court?
I don't think that it's fair that women have to think about protecting themselves from sexual violence when they leave their homes or go to parties, but at the same time, you know, this is just a word of mouth list. It's not something that's been validated or verified or anything like that.
U of C wouldn't comment on the anonymous web posting. Instead, it referenced a statement in which it says it is committed to preventing and addressing sexual misconduct, unlawful harassment, and discrimination. Reporting from Hyde Park on the University of Chicago campus, Tanya Francisco, WGN News.
There's an alert this morning for DePaul students. A stranger is going up to female students to get their numbers. Those numbers are then being posted online. There have been several reports of this happening this month on the Lincoln Park campus. The men talk the students into giving their phone numbers, and then those numbers have been posted on a members-only website without the student's permission. In at least one case, the man touched a student inappropriately. Opening statements in the murder trial of Joshua Minor are underway in Joliet. Minor has chosen a judge instead of a jury to hear his case. He and 3 other people were charged with murdering Eric Glover and Terrence Brakens. Prosecutors say Minor helped lure the men to a home, then robbed and killed them. Bethany McGee was convicted earlier this year, and Alyssa Massaro struck a plea deal. Adam Landerman is still behind bars waiting his trial.
Mayor Rahm Emanuel and Police Superintendent Gary McCarthy are teaming up to prod state lawmakers to ease penalties for drug possession, and at the same time they want lawmakers to toughen penalties for gun crimes. Emanuel and McCarthy are calling for tickets to be issued to those found with less than 1 ounce of marijuana rather than being arrested. This would reduce the number of arrests and keep from clogging jails with nonviolent offenders. Those guilty of minor drug possessions would then only have a misdemeanor on their record instead of a felony. Felony convictions often prevent ex-offenders from getting meaningful jobs, entering college, getting scholarships, or accessing public housing. Mayor Emanuel and Chief McCarthy say that the proposals would save taxpayer dollars because more than 7,000 people are arrested each year for possession of less than 1 gram of marijuana. They say that those nonviolent people would still retain the ability to have a brighter future without felony conviction that would dog them for the rest of their lives.
It's time to free up our resources for the truly violent offenders who pose the bigger threat to the safety of our communities and our neighborhoods. And it's time to allow police officers throughout the state of Illinois to keep their focus where it is most, keeping our children, our families safe from violence.
Crime reduction is not about putting more people in jail. It's about putting the right people in jail. Our arrests are down by 14% over the 3-year period, 11% from 2 years ago, and 10% from last year, while at the same time achieving those crime reductions at the same time.
Mayor Emanuel says that it just doesn't make sense that an arrest for a small amount of a controlled substance should lead to a lifetime of struggle. Firefighters are chasing hot spots after putting out a large fire in the Little Village neighborhood. The fire broke out around 5:30 this morning in a 2-story commercial building near the corner of Ogden and Pulaski. Large flames shot through the roof and heavy smoke could be seen for miles. Firefighters poured water on the fire for more than 2 hours before bringing it under control. The building housed 2 businesses, a recording studio on the first floor and a banquet hall upstairs.
Basically rented out to have parties. At nighttime, you would drive down here and you would be able to see all the cars cluttering Ogden Avenue. And you would wonder, who's having a party, or maybe they're having a promotion or something.
A firefighter suffered a minor injury. The cause of the fire has not been determined.
Chicago's next archbishop is talking about his goals to help the poor and smaller diocese. Bishop Blaise Supich is back in the Chicago area for a conference for the Chicago-based Catholic Extension. He will lead that group when he officially replaces Cardinal Francis George on November 18th. That group is devoted to helping dioceses that don't have the means to support themselves. Supich says he wants those smaller churches to speak out against inequality in the world.
I look forward to really continuing that tradition of building faith inspiring hope and igniting change. That is really a part of the wonderful heritage, and I couldn't be prouder than to be a continual part of that for the rest of my days as a bishop.
Supich has not decided where he will live in Chicago. He has already spent a night in the residence where Cardinal Francis George lives in the Gold Coast. Supich says he wants to live where he can be the most effective.
Coming up after the break, Chief Meteorologist Tom Skilling will have your weekend weather forecast, and later in sports, highlights from the Bears game that made it worth it to stay up late.
Plus, the CDC issues a dire prediction about the Ebola outbreak in Africa.
And what investigators are expecting today that could shed light on what happened to missing University of Virginia student Hannah Graham.